What's good, everybody? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with the collaboration. And of course, I welcome you all to the pre-recorded stream today. But I have a very powerful brother who, a lot of folks are talking about our brother right now. He's making a lot of noise right now. I want him to introduce himself and what his YouTube channel is all about.
I am Sarah Garvey. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say, O'Shea, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think there are things that need to be spoken about. Sarah Garvey, I've been making content in YouTube land for maybe, 5 or 6 years now, focusing on race, religion, social issues, men issues, relationships, and all that good stuff. So yeah, clearly at this point in time, when it comes to the JustPearlyThings situation, the manosphere and race relations in general has kind of, exploded. So yeah, we can get into that.
All right, so editors, give him a round of applause. And with a song, Garvey, I think we've known about one another. Mm-hmm. But I've known of you for at least a few years.
Okay.
And we have a mutual person that we both at least know, brother Richie from the UK.
Yeah.
Who is real big in the what we consider the pro-Black and Pan-African community. He comes out to New York and the Sonnet. I met him through brother George, and I know that for you, you're also very wildly known in the British pro-Black arena, whether people know it about or not, right?
I have been speaking on issues pertaining to Black people for years. And, people call it pro-Black. I just call it, Black betterment and the betterment of Black people in general. So yeah, in the UK, like a lot of people have known about me and known that when it comes to the forward movement of Black people globally, I've always been about that. Yeah.
Right. And I know that about you because brothers have told me you have, you're on the ground. So you're not just a brother that's just, YouTube giving you boots on the ground in that community. We would call it the pro-Black community or Pan-African community in London, which is one of the biggest cities. You New York City, Philly.
Yeah.
It's right up there. LA. Okay.
Yeah, in Europe, I guess. Yeah, there's quite a big,
sure.
There's quite a big, I guess what you would call Pan-African or pro-Black community over here. And I've been in and involved, I've been to see, certain people when they arrive, I've been involved in organizations, I've done all of that. And I've just kind of built on that, I'm all about the betterment of Black people globally. Not just in London, not just in America, not just in Africa, just globally. I think we all have a similar experience, being Black and understanding that can actually feed a line through all of the nations that Black people find themselves in.
Right, and I see certain people trying to attack that part of your character as if that's not what you do. You even have. I saw a blog where somebody was disagreeing with you about the last name Garvey, going back 7-8 years. So before coming to YouTube, I've seen people talking about you in that regard, and I've seen some people trying to basically, downplay some of the things that you've been doing out there in London. But with that being said, because when I listen to a brother like you, and I listen to some of the things that you build upon. That's what we say in the part of the pro-Black community. Brother, let me build on that. And I see some of the things the conversations that you have. Many people would want to know how then does someone like you, with the morality that you stand on, and somebody like JustPearlyThings, who appears to be almost diametrically opposed to the way of life that me and you live or how we feel. How then come in contact with somebody such as that who doesn't really have a lot of sympathy for our way of life or agree?
So, I hear you. I think there's a difference also, right? In like the American experience and maybe like the UK experience. I don't hate anybody. And so one of the things, like I explained in my video when it came to JustPearlyThings, myself and Pearl aligned on issues pertaining to, you know, the manosphere, right? And that's what we aligned on. I don't hate, or I have no history of, you know, trying to rile up people from other races. I kind of work with everyone. However, I am very, very staunch on the fact that I want the betterment for Black people. You know, if you kind of look at it like, you know, there are people from all around the world who are about their people. The Chinese are about their people, right? But they work with everybody, you know. But if you say something about China, they're gonna have a problem with you, right?
A big problem.
Right. And so I kind of think of it as the same way. It's like, I don't have a problem with working with all types of people, but if you try to go against what I feel is Black people, I'm going to have a problem. Hence the reason why this has blown up so much within, you know, Black YouTube.
Right. And that's something that to consider, because the African American experience and the Black British experience, from what I understand from Black British people, their racism is a little bit more subtle than it is. A little
bit more subtle. You know, we didn't have slavery over here. So we don't have, we definitely had, you know, we have a history of, you know, the Great Britain has a history of colonization all over the world. So we have a sense of colonization and what it means, which is why I use the term. And I didn't use the other terms that maybe African Americans would have used. They would have used the term racist or something like that, right? But because I am kind of well versed in colonization and what it takes and imperialism, that's the reason why I kind of use those terms.
Right. And I want to clarify something. And I know you didn't mean it that way, but you said, you know, you don't hate anybody. I don't think also that African Americans hate anybody also, but I believe that it is more looked upon in our community that, okay, this person is, even like interracial dating is more very much looked down upon in the African American community, out of any community. It is, I've seen brothers to say, for example, from Africa, and they can go back to their home country and become made a chief. I bring home a white woman, that's not going to ever happen. You know what I mean? So I know that there are different perspectives, but yeah, you're right. I know that there's a different experience in our Black experience, although there are a lot of similarities. But she reached out to you, is that right? Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, so she was reacting to my content before she got to the UK. She reached out to me and she said that, you know, she's making a podcast show based in and around the same kind of talking points of, you know, the late great Kevin Samuels and stuff like that. And so being a fan of Kevin Samuels, I was like, okay, cool. So initially it was strictly about that kind of content. It was strictly around like manosphere content, red pill content, that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. This is a nice, I guess a nice pivot. Also stuff that I'm talking about. Like I said in the video, I was going through my own, child support stuff and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, it kind of aligns with me. And so that's how I started working with her. And that's about a year ago now.
Okay. So did she know anybody? And let me ask you a question, because I know that previously, me being in the business from how I am, I can see that the setup is not the exact same, but it's very similar to what I perceive Fresh and Fit setup is. The way that it's working, right? And so when you look at certain cities, Miami was a great city to do that in. So why did she move to London of all places? Did you ever ask her? You know anybody there?
To my knowledge, she moved to London because she went to college in London and she was on some kind of volleyball scholarship. So she was actually playing volleyball internationally. So that's why she chose to come to London. As far as my knowledge, she came to London because she was studying here.
Okay, so she was familiar with she'd already graduated, or she was still studying at the same time?
No, she was studying here, yeah.
Oh, at the same time. Okay.
Yeah, same time, yeah.
Okay, so now, just to set the record straight, and I definitely know, watching some of your clips on TikTok that I saw that were viral, and even some I've used in some of my videos at least once or twice, all of that content revolved around what I would consider child support issues, manosphere and talking points, if you will. So I noticed that that's what was talked about almost primarily as almost like an answer for what Fresh and Fit was in Miami just in the UK with, let's say, for example, not as much action or entertainment, but more of a mellow version of what Fresh and Fit is, without people getting kicked out and all that, more intellectual, if you will.
Right.
At time.
It was a little bit more intellectual. I think if you were to go back on her channel, you would see it kind of started like that, you know. You can see us around just a dinner table with like loads of mics and like, you know, wires everywhere and talking to different types of people. And I guess it kind of grew and grew and grew and grew. We never touched on the race issue. We touched on the race issue a few times. Like I said, you saw in a video when we spoke about colonization.
Right.
There was another time which was very interesting to me, which was further down the line when we were talking about manhood. And Pearl randomly said, "Do I think George Washington is a real man?" And I said, being in the UK, I don't know much about George Washington. What do you mean? And she said, "Oh, you know, people talk about him hundreds and hundreds of years later and all this kind of stuff." And I just asked her, I said, "Did he have slaves?" And, you know, this is online. And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Any man that has slaves is not a real man to me." And she was like, "Oh, but, you know, his slaves kind of saw him as their dad." And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, and that's when I started to realize this woman doesn't have a clue when it comes to race and race relations. However, she's so dogmatic, right? In the things that she says about race and racism. It's like the more and more that I saw, I was like, no, this is a very quote unquote colonial mindset.
So let me just kind of talk about this, because you received some criticism for, let's say, all right, you started to see these, you know, holes in the surface there. Here and there, you'll see glimpses of this, but primarily, almost any working relationship, there are going to be some things about a person that you would see. Okay, well, that person is like that, or that might be their point of view, but I can maybe let that slide for whatever reason. Not saying that you said that, but I've had that even in the manosphere community I was in. Like, okay, I see some things that I don't really like here and there, but I can just, you know, let's continue to roll with it. But you did mention something about the Just Pearly Thing situation where she got, I believe, a new management that sort of changed some of the element that you two had before. So how was it before getting this new manager? Right. Let's talk about that, and we'll go after that.
Right. So before, I guess you got the management. I started to see things change in like studio setups and stuff like that. And this was, I don't know, this was about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. And I started to see the studio stuff change. And then she started like, it started to grow. She started like hiring recruiters and stuff. And then she was, and I said, "What's your management like?" And she was like, "Oh, I've been managed now." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So obviously me being an independent, I was not part of the company, so I wouldn't have known that. So then she divulged to me later on, not initially. She didn't tell me initially who her management was. But as it got further and further and things started to get more, you know, more bright and shiny, I was like, "Who's your management? Like, who's funding this? What's going on here?" And she was like, "Oh, she has the same management as Candace Owens." And so I was like, "Okay, cool." So, you know, I had to go and research who Candace Owens was. You know, I had to go and sit and see who Candace Owens was. And I was like, okay. And then that's when things started to change. Like some of the views she started coming out with, and, you know, I guess she started to bolster herself up a little bit more on the views and stuff. And, you know, it's my contention that her management probably share the same views that, you know, she espouses now, you know, when it comes to the whole quote unquote my Africans thing. And especially when it came to like recruitment and stuff, it was very interesting, and who she used to start recruiting, and the reasons why she was constantly recruiting. Because if you go back in the show, we've always had like a mixed panel of people, but the more and the more, you know, she started to gain popularity is a more and more, I started to see that it was, you know, primarily black. You know, it was primarily black. She hired a black recruiter. She was constantly hiring other black people. She had an assistant. She was black. And I was like, on the surface, this looks amazing. You know, black people are getting hired. You know, black people are, you know, getting jobs, or they're doing well. But then, like I said, I started to see the colonial mindset in there. And that's when I started to say, maybe these things aren't as good as they seem.
Okay, so again, that's been the argument from so many people, you know, in Black YouTube. She's giving Africans or black people jobs. Okay, and now I know that you're not a part of the company. You're working something like as a contractor, and you were recently just on there with, you know, Melanie King,
with Melanie King and MTR. Yeah,
right. So then, knowing what you know, what would then cause you at this particular perfect timing, when all this has come out, to release this information about, you know, so much the elephant in the room, or, you know, kind of taking off the mask there, or, you know, exposing the naked truth? Why, for someone to know why now, you know, we were just on a few weeks ago.
I think for me, I think the catalyst was Nick Fuentes and how that went down. Okay. And for me, I've said before, I had no idea she interviewed Nick Fuentes. Even though you spoke about MTR and Melanie King, she had done the Nick Fuentes interview prior to us being on the panel. None of them knew. Okay, and the only time I knew is when it popped up on my timeline. And me thinking, okay, cool, she's done all of this. Because even though I could see certain things in her, I was like, okay, all right, I don't like that. I'll try and school her here. Don't like that, try and school her here. With the Nick Fuentes thing, for me, that was a step too far. To me,
what about it was a step too far?
The way in which she spoke with him, and her ignorance, her blind ignorance, when it came to speaking, for me, with another white person about colonization, slavery, and black people. You see, there are things in that interview that she's never expressed to me, right? There are things in that interview that I realized and I heard, and I was like, I'm too uncomfortable with this. And I already knew about, you know, I said, I've already been invited to, you know, that crazy party, right? And I was like, no, this is a step too far. And so what happened, I saw the backlash that she was getting of the Nick Fuentes interview. And, you know, I spoke with her after the Nick Fuentes interview, and I said, you know, what was that about? You know, like, what was that all about? Like, why were you doing that? And then she was like, she was very blasé. Right, she's very blasé, like, oh well, you know, maybe in hindsight I should have done this, and you know, maybe in hindsight I should have done that. And I said, pal, this ain't a good look. You know, this ain't a good look. Like, why would you interview somebody like that? And I said, secondly, why would you have that person openly on your platform disrespecting your friend, saying the Italian community don't claim you because you got a black boyfriend? Right, and you're just sitting there chill. Like, to me, that was too much. I'm like, you know what it done for me is that it solidified and it confirmed exactly my, you know, black people, you know, black people, some people say, oh, you got a chip on your shoulder, are you paranoid, are you doing all this? And you're like, okay, cool, maybe, let me think about it. But that was too much for me. That was too much for me. I said, you know what, I'm gonna lift the lid. And because if I go a little further, there comes a time for black people, specifically, that we're in situations, okay, and we can either walk away from the situation, or we can tell other black people, hey, don't go there, you know, don't do that. You know, if I know something and I know a person's bad, I'm not gonna let you walk down the same street. That's just me as an individual. I'm not gonna try and make you walk on the same street as a bad person. You may get hurt, right? If I come back hurt, you know, if I come back hurt, all right, so be it. But I'm gonna like, yo, O'Shea, don't go down there, bro. It's crazy down there, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tell people, and I think people need to know.
Mm-hmm. So let me, before we get into the backlash,
Mm-hmm.
I want to get in back to this, these alleged contracts that people are talking about.
She confirmed it. It's not alleged anymore. I think she was on another show confirming what I said, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. But so tell me about the whole contractual issue between you and her, and also, I know you had some information about some of the others, but we can, if you feel comfortable talking about them.
So this was also kind of joint with the Nick Fuentes thing.
Okay.
So when I confronted her on Nick Fuentes thing, she was very blasé about it, and she kind of passed over it. And her answer to me kind of grilling her about Nick Fuentes was to talk to me about a new contract. Right? That was her answer. You know, I was trying to talk about Nick Fuentes, and she kind of glossed over it. She's like, sorry. She was like, I want to talk about this contract thing. I want to talk about this new segment on my show. So prior to that, I had already heard some stuff about contracts, because obviously I was not contracted to the show. So, but I was also friends with people in the organization. So I had heard some things about contracts. So I was like, okay, cool, let me listen. Right, I'm a listen. And so when she said she wants me in her studio for 4 days a week, 7 hours, and she was going to own 70% of my content, after coming to the UK, reacting to me, I was just like, hang on a minute. Why would you be trying to treat me? And then I started thinking, my Africans, right? All of this racist stuff. And I was like, okay, so you want to own me? And I said this to her outright. I said, essentially, you're trying to own me. I said to her, essentially, you're trying to own me. And then, again, blasé. Oh, no, I'm not trying to do that. I just say, we're not making enough money here and blah, blah, blah. Now, I've seen you do videos and I've seen videos as the amount of money that JustPearlyThings makes each month. It can be upwards around $300,000.
Oh,
right?
I would assume that.
Yeah, so upwards around $300,000. So I'm like, so you're making like $300,000 a month, and that's what you're gonna do, or more, or more. And I'm like, that's what you're gonna do.
It's probably the baseline.
Like, yeah, exactly, because we know we're YouTubers, right? So I was like, no, that's not right. And so that was her contract idea for me, and that's when I realized that she tended to see me just the way she saw, quote unquote, her Africans. Anyone black working for her was one of her Africans, right? And she just give them some scraps at a table and then say, you should be happy with it. And I was like, no, that's not how it works.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I want to go in from a little bit deeper detail, because when I'm thinking about 30%, so did she want you to come in and create the content on your own channel with 100,000 subscribers, and then, or did she want you to go on the JustPearlyThings channel and do that?
No, the contract was I was gonna record my content, right? Put it on my channel.
Whoa, wait. Let's start back again, because I don't think people understood that part. Because they probably thought like, oh, you're gonna go to her channel and record on the JustPearlyThings network. No, say it again so we're all clear.
Okay, so listen, I would be recording in her studio.
Yes.
Right? Her studio, but the content would be posted on my channel.
Yes.
And her channel. I want people to understand. So it's posted on my channel. On my channel, she would gain 70% of that revenue. If she posted on her channel, she would gain 100% of the revenue. Right? So on my channel with 100,000 subscribers, and on her channel with 1 million subscribers, right? She'd be making obviously more money on maybe generally more views on her channel than I'd be making on mine. So any little money that I did get on my channel, she'd be taking 70% of that.
So for you guys out there, after hearing that explanation, I don't think anybody's asked that question yet. So that is what he means when he says colonization. It's almost like, same thing is me creating this channel, going to JustPearlyThings, being there for 7 hours a day, for 4 days a week, But because she, and this it would be, I think it would be a little bit different if you were to say, you know what, I would like to use your equipment to do my show
and pay a fee for the studio time. Yeah, of course.
Right. That would be different.
Right.
But for me to come and tell you as an individual, you know what, let me take your own hard on work and you come and shoot it in my podcast because you're a nobody. Who cares? You know what I mean? And you're here to serve me and my interests.
That's right.
And how do you feel about that?
For 3 years.
The contract was for 3 years.
3 years.
And I don't even really want to get into anybody else in their contracts or agreements. We won't even mention their names because your story in itself is proof in the pudding. So now I understand what you're talking about as far as a colonial mindset.
Yes, correct.
Yes, now everybody knows because even if she says do it on her channel, it's still, bad.
I wouldn't receive any money from her channel.
Okay, and so let me ask you this because she said she wanted a new show. So does that mean, because you had a prior agreement that you were getting a fee? Like I'm assuming when Melanie King came or something like that, that was a prior agreement.
Yeah. We've always had a prior agreement.
Did she still want to continue that prior agreement?
No. She wanted to get me under contract.
Okay, so no more prior agreement. Although, and I personally believe, and this is no really disrespect to her, JustPearlyThings is not. I mean, I'm not a big Fresh and Fit fan, but one thing about Fresh and Fit you can say is that they're going to get a lot of people in the room. Their audience is really active.
Yes.
JustPearlyThings, nobody says a honest opinion. You know what? Let's stop whatever we're doing
and watch.
Because JustPearlyThings is on right now. When you look at her channel, it's not set up for that sort of impact. Like, let's say Kevin Samuels, or let's say you see Tariq Nasheed or Jason Black. Those people are like waiting for that kind of content to come on.
Waiting for that. Yeah.
Like Jason Black has like 70,000 subscribers. We can have like 9,000 people in the chat room.
Right.
And JustPearlyThings can have 1 million subscribers and have like only maybe 1,000 or 1,500.
That's right.
In the chat room.
That's correct. Yeah.
So you get to just that. As a content creator, she's just like let's just make a content meal and just put these things out. These things that don't really hold a whole lot of value, maybe. So that's kind of how I feel about her. But now let me ask you this, because you also talked about these particular parties without naming anybody else. And because one of the guys already tried to get at me, but these particular parties that you talked about, what information would you like to divulge about that?
I'm gonna say this, okay. There was a grown black woman, twice Pearly's age, okay, handing out bananas. Because we already got black women and bananas, right? So we have a black woman, twice Pearly's age, handing out bananas to all of the women in the party and saying to them that they are supposed to show the party, strangers, people that they don't know, how to suck their man's thing. While in the corner, her manager was filming. That's what I saw.
Who? No, the manager. It's the new person, or
no? Yeah, the new manager, the one that I saw, that I featured in the video previously, Kobe. He was filming in that party. He was filming a lot.
Is Kobe white or black?
He's white.
A white American.
Yeah, he's a white American. When these things were happening at the party, I'll say this. When I started to realize what was going on, I took out my phone and I started filming. I didn't engage in any of the activities that were going on, but I knew something was going on. And because, most people were, intoxicated, Pearl wasn't drinking and her manager wasn't drinking, but everyone else was drinking like hard liquor and getting really messed up and doing all these games and doing all these things. And I was like, there's something else going on here. Something maybe that people need to know about, right? And so I knew that I wasn't going to stay there. And I left soon after. But I heard things that went down at that party, but I don't want to do things like speculate and go online and say all of this stuff, because it wouldn't be things that I saw myself, right? It wouldn't be things that I saw myself, but from what I did see, that's what I saw.
So once you, and I had got word before that you were going to put this video out. It was kind of circling. First you put the community tab thing out, but even before then, I think you had talked to 3 brothers and sisters in the community, and that's how I found out that Brother Sarah is likely about to release a video, because you kind of put it out there with some of the brothers in the community. And so once you put this video out, I've noticed that you had this podcast with her called The Gray Area.
Right. I want to go into that.
Yeah, the content was fine. She never struck the content prior to that.
Ever.
But after releasing this video, then all of a sudden she's attempting to take your channel down.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I would want the YouTube space to know about the content and also the podcast. Pearl has a podcast, and she had one that was doing like 3 days a week, and she called it the Pre-Game Podcast. I have nothing to do with the Pre-Game Podcast. Nothing. I'm not on the Pre-Game. That's got nothing to do with me. Myself and Pearl had a podcast together called The Gray Area. Like you said, you can go down our channel, go down the lives. You'll see up to episode 20 something on her channel that myself and her done, co-hosting The Gray Area. Her management knew it was actually set up by her manager. Emails back and forth, etc., about, creating this new content together and all of this kind of stuff. So the only thing that I posted on my channel was from The Gray Area, was from our co-hosting show. It wasn't the pre-game. So essentially her strikes are illegal. Okay, because that is our content. That is our podcast. It's in writing, with her manager. That's exactly what we plan to do, and then that's exactly what we done. So when she strikes my channel, it's based off of spite, vindictiveness, stuff like that, because I showed, people what she didn't want to show them. And and I think, like I said before, to go back, I think people needed to know. I really do think people needed to know what was going on there, because a lot of people see YouTube land and they have a perception of what actually goes down, and they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know. And I said, I became somebody in there that said to, and I said to myself, I can either go along just to get along, right? Or I could show what's really going on here, right? And I chose to show what exactly was going on there. And then in her response, she decided to try and silence me.
Was there ever any reach out prior to those copyright strikes from her or anybody on her team?
None whatsoever.
Just copyright strikes.
Just straight copy. Like, she went back, like you said, back to 6 months, 7 months ago on my channel. So if there was a problem with the copyright and we're still working together, why wasn't it done then? Why didn't you even have a conversation with me to say, you know what, Sarah, like, could you take it down, blah blah blah? No, the only stuff on my channel was from The Gray Area, our co-hosted podcast.
Right. There's a brother I will want to mention by name, because it is a brother. I believe he's the guy who does the scheduling. He's a very opinionated guy. A young man by the name of Amiri. Is it How?
Amiri. Okay, yeah, I know Amiri.
Yeah, Amiri. He has a lot to say. He's a very entertaining guy. I don't really believe he's that bright, to be honest, and you can't really connect the dots. But he's a very entertaining guy to listen to. He said something to the effect about, basically, he said some things about you, but I want to kind of get to the core of what he's saying in an argument that pretty much the response that JustPearlyThings is receiving, Black people such as myself, or you, we're the pro-blacks in so many words, and we're the problems because we're not allowing discussions. We're trying to pigeonhole a discussion that some blacks want to elevate, and people like us are pretty much oppressing or depressing that particular sort of conversation in defense of just Purdy things. So he came after me. He called people in the black mess or imbeciles, and a lot of this, colorful name calling and things of that nature. And I kind of want to ask you, because now you've mentioned, you talked on the phone. You said, hey, a lot of these other people are speaking for her, and she's not necessarily speaking for herself anymore, right? Why do you think that's the case?
Like I said, colonizer mindset. Okay, the colonizer doesn't say much, but their minions do. The people that are under their rule and under their power do. This has caused such a chasm, right, within this Black YouTube space. And it's caused a chasm in both the manosphere and also in race relations in general, right? So, I don't know what he said about me, but I know he hasn't called me a liar. And that's the one thing that people can't say about me, is that I'm a liar. People will have a lot to say, right? They're always going to have something to say, but they can't say I'm a liar. Have you noticed that she's not come out and said I'm a liar? No one said I'm a liar.
I haven't heard her say that.
Because they know that it's the truth. And so he can say what he likes. All of the people that are under her umbrella can say what they want, right? But they will not call me a liar. And if they do, they'd have to produce evidence as to what I'm lying about, right? And so, yeah, I think behind the scenes, in my personal opinion now, right? Because of there's discontentment behind the scenes, right? There are some Black people who are riding for her and some that aren't, right? And so she has to show, or there has to be a show of strength that we're all like this. And I don't think they all are, right? From what I saw while I was there, right? So when he's out here saying whatever he's saying, because I have no idea what he's saying, whenever he's out here saying whatever it is that he's saying, I'm just like, okay, cool. You can call people all types of stuff. You can't call me a liar. So that's for me. Right. That's for me how I live my life. As long as you don't call me a liar, because if somebody hears me speak, they're gonna say, I'm gonna tune into Sarah Garvey because you can tell the truth at least. I might not like the truth, right? I might not like it, but I know it's the truth. I ain't gonna lie.
Let me ask you a question that me and some of the brothers have been debating this or asking a question, which is, Black London is one of the key points that we would say for, obviously you have Harlem, 125th Street, Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC, and then you got to put London in one of those places where there's a lot of African Black history, Black thought that comes out of this place. There is quite a large Black population in the city of London.
Yes.
And it's growing every day, especially coming from places like the Zimbabwe, obviously other parts of the EU now, because it's easy to get to the UK, easier, right? So then now somebody will say, well, look, you brothers and sisters have been there in the UK, and you have a lot of prominent Black YouTubers in the UK. Some of them are really huge around the world. So how does it that the brothers and sisters in Black London are anywhere in the Black world, right? This person comes into a space using the Black or Africans or Caribbean brothers and sisters to set this up for herself, when the Black brothers and sisters in the UK have that same opportunity and cannot do it for themselves. And this person comes in just in 2 years and pretty much tries to give people a position or put Black people on in a position where, and it's been deliberate for her, right? She's trying to get into hip hop before hip hop reaction. So she's been trying to get into the culture. So how is it that the brothers and sisters in London don't control, the space such that,
Yeah. I'd say there's probably a couple of reasons. I'd say, there is in Black people in general around the world, there is discontentment, there is disharmony, and there is distrust. Okay. How did she do it? she got good funding, as Pearl said. Her dad has been a multi-millionaire, all of her life. She's had good funding. I think the psychology, if I'm totally honest, the colonization psychology lives within a lot of Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, I had a podcast over here named The Black Opinion. That was the name of my podcast.
Okay.
Right? The Black Opinion was the name of my podcast. And I set that up, and I was doing that on a regular basis. I think because of these subtle ways in which racism exists here, not so much America, I believe Black people in America are more so, even though they have their isms and their schisms, they're more aligned to go to a Black space. They go to a Black space. Black people in the UK and in Europe, because I think colonizer mindset, a lot of the times they're waiting on a savior that doesn't look like them. A lot of the times they're waiting on a savior that does not look like them. And it is sad. It is. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it is sad. There are a lot of podcasts. I would have to shout out the Domino Effect podcast, because those are two Black brothers doing, a good podcast over here. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of we also got to understand the timeline of podcasting. America's always been a little bit ahead. They've always been a little bit ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to podcasting also. And I think that Black people in the UK are like slowly catching up. So you have individuals and you have like podcasts. Also, you have a lot of what I would call ratchet podcasts, stuff that's just about ratchet stuff. And that might get the clicks and the likes and the views, but the stuff that essentially would help us move forward and for the betterment. Like I said, I done the Black Opinion podcast for a few years, and I had all types of people on, and what I did see is that a lot of Black people in the UK, while they were like, yeah, that's great, it was like, let's go over here and watch some other stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let's go and watch some other stuff. So I was like
brothers and sisters and me.
Yeah, it's like it's like that's sad. It's really sad, and there's nothing else I can say. But they're waiting on a pearl. They're waiting on a white savior. It's a complex that a lot of us have had for a long time. A lot. I mean, we find it very much easier. Look at what's happening right now. We find it so easier to go against each other.
Oh my goodness!
It's so.
What do you think about this big fallout, man? I would have. Here's the thing. I'm glad I'm going to build on what you're talking about, brother. But I could have predicted that, and people listening to Just Pearly Things, you got a sense that okay, here's somebody who understands how our business works and can activate the business and can carry out the functions of the day-to-day operations. That's no doubt about that. She's a good administrator of the business.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Content in the business, the young lady has no idea what she's talking about, right? So, and other guys were saying this. Well, Tomasi was saying this. Albert Preach said this.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell that, maybe she was trying too hard to cape for men in certain elements and certain things didn't sound right. But one thing that we could not have predicted was this complete civil war that we're seeing in Black YouTube, where you had somebody like me who was affiliated with the Black Manosphere, one of the founders, and because of that, how people acted, I had to dissociate myself. I've seen people who were friends and now they're not talking anymore, who have met up before ain't talking no more. Yeah. That's what I predict. So what do you think about that?
What do I think about that? I think that there's always been something bubbling. I'm going to say something maybe controversial to African Americans specifically, right? And I want people to understand, I mean no disrespect. Okay. I done a video about a year or so ago about an identity crisis within Black people. And if I go through the terms with you'll probably have heard those terms. So you have FBA, right? Yes. You have ADOS. Yes. Moors. Yes. Aboriginals. Yes. Hebrew Israelites. Hebrew Israelites. The 5%ers. Yeah. The Nation of Islam, right? Yes. I just named 7 different identities that Black people have in America, right? So when you have those 7 different identities clamoring for the quote unquote Black umbrella, and they only care more so about that umbrella, whether it be 5%, Hebrew, ADOS, FBA, you're gonna get that discontentment. You're gonna get that ism and schism. And so, you know, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but there's too many there's too many factions. There's too many factions. And what has happened is what you have now within the quote unquote Black community on YouTube is that you have all of these different Black people from all of these different, you know, factions saying, oh yeah, this, that, and underlying of that is, oh, I'm FBA. Oh, he's a Hebrew. Oh, he's a this. Oh, he's a 5%er. Oh, that's what we go through. Is it? And it's like, that's the underlying thing. And so what that does is that it causes more friction. So of course, essentially it's easy for somebody who's outside of all of that to come in that doesn't look like us.
I get what you're saying. Dividing and
control
counter.
Yeah. It's easy for them to do that because we got so much friction going on between us, right? So when you see people like I'm on the stream with you, O'Shea, and I actually don't care what you call yourself, FBA or ADOS or African or Hebrew. I don't care. I know that you look like me and I look like you, right? And I know we'll have similar experiences within this world, right? Yeah. We'll have similar experiences. Some Black people care so much about the fact that he's not FBA and he's not Hebrew and he's not this. They allow it, right, to cause more friction. And so, you know, everybody knows divide and rule tactic. It's not hard to divide and rule the people who are already divided.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I know also in London, this is really big there because you have, at least with us, most of us are the same, at least identity, but you have Ghanaians, Nigerians, Africans versus Caribbeans. It's even more convoluted there in the UK than us.
So the thing about the UK, this is one of the things that I like about the UK, right? Is that we call ourselves just Black UK, right? And so yes, there are different factions. There are Ghanaians, there are Zimbabweans, there are people from Jamaica. My family's from Jamaica, right? You know, there are people from Nigeria, all this kind of stuff. But we kind of call ourselves like Black UK. And so, but there is, like you said, there are still isms and schisms. I think I think the older we get, the younger generation are kind of getting rid of that. Maybe, hopefully.
I want to push back on some of that. I mean, because you talked about 5% Hebrew Israelites, FBA, ADOS. I think those are identities.
Can I just say something? Can I just say something before you say that, right?
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that we do, as Black people in general, right, is that we kind of look for validation outside ourselves, right? Yes. Which is why the JustPearlyThings happened. If you go to the US, right, you guys have got like DJ Vlad, right? So DJ Vlad is kind of like the guy to go to when Black people want to speak. And I'm like, is he from the culture?
Absolutely.
Is he from the culture, right? Over here, we had like Tim Westwood in the UK. He was like another white DJ. Same thing that all of the Black artists done. Let's go to Tim Westwood, right?
Right.
We don't validate ourselves. In America, they had a Leo Cohen, right? Something that Dame Dash spoke about, right? Leo Cohen. And
right.
And okay, is he from the culture? No. We have people that know that we're the talent, you know, O'Shea. They know we're the talent, but they want to control the talent. And so if we don't start having some kind of conglomerate, some kind of unification, even if we are FBA, even if we are Hebrew, even if we don't start having something, knowing that the culture's ours, then someone outside of it is always going to be able to divide us and come in between.
Right. No, I agree with that. Let me just tell you about a few things, what I'm seeing, what's happening on YouTube. Now, I think most people with the JustPearlyThings would already agree, at least some of the biggest voices, that I am African-American, or even, you know, you have some Africans living in America as a big population. But I think what you have it's more of a separation between the pro-blacks and those who are more aligned with conservatives, black conservatives.
Right.
That's what you're seeing right now.
Right.
And so those people who are taking Just Pearly Things side, you tend to see those people already fed up with the lack of progress in Black America.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening, I believe, from what I can see. So some of the people who feel like it's not really useful working with Black people, they have turned on me. And one of the things about I think this the very similar in the UK and the United States, we don't really hire or fire each other. So when we look at Blacks, we don't look at we're going to get any value from each other. So we don't really need each other at all.
Right.
Outside of if we're going to be going to church together or to the club together or whatever. So there's no reason why I need to have any real respect for you. And then you're seeing a lot of these guys who are having a problem with, let's say, Black single motherhood and things like that.
Right.
The poop rare culture. So what it is that when they look at somebody like, let's say, Dr. Umar Johnson or pro-Blacks, and this has been going on before. So what do I get for defending Black people?
Yes.
What do I get for defending the Black church?
Right.
Or even being with Black women or Black men? You get absolutely nothing for doing that. All right.
Right.
Like, my house got broken into. It wasn't a white person. Right. It was Pookie in them. Right. That's how some of these people are equating this. So underlying that was more or less the issue than versus I'm 5%, which is Nations God and Earth's Clarence 13X, which is a very small percentage, which is really in Queens, New York City, kind of thing. Or Moors, Hebrew Israelites. I can get what you're saying. That's more or less, if you go to Sonetter's channel, you would hear those debates, Hebrew Israelite. But in this particular case, what you're hearing is that, okay, I'm already tired of Black culture and it's not good.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So it's not good. So what she's saying is how I've been feeling anyway.
Right.
So let her say it. Don't apologize to those people because I can't get nowhere with them anyway. So why defend them? What do you get for defending them? So, and even though that is a part of my community, I've seen Black Lives Matter, nothing happens. I've seen corrupt Black pastors, nothing happens. I've had my heart broken by these Black people we're trying to defend. I'm tired of defending them, right? So if she comes in and says it, and then there's a little trinket like, hey, and most of us work, if we want to be honest, most of us are not Black entrepreneurs or hired and fired. We mostly, if not solely, work for white-owned corporations, and we get our money from them. And then if we get a house, we are praying to God that we don't live in some of the decrepit places that we grew up in, and we're trying to get out of those places, right? And then other people are moving in, gentrifying it. So once we get into a new life where they ain't got to worry about the loud music anymore. So I think more or less, and I can agree where you're trying to go, but I think that's what it is. Like, why should you defend Black women as a Black man if they don't respect you, or vice versa, a Black woman as a Black man? I think that's where these guys are divided upon that particular, that demarcation is there in those arguments. And that's the line that they're taking, in my opinion.
No, I hear you, and I would actually agree with you to some degree. Like, I think the Black family unit in general has been, broken apart. Right. It's been broken, and a lot of I've said one of the reasons in my video that I released, aggressive feminism has taken over Black women specifically, crazily, and so it's kind of helps to break and disenfranchise the Black community in general. So yeah, like, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you.
Sorry, the mosquitoes got me, brother.
No problem.
Let me just talk about this, because one thing I want to say, as far as content creators, and unfortunately some of the problems that follow us from the public, follow us online, right? And this situation has taught me something. There's a YouTuber that I didn't even have spoken to for like about 3 years. I mean, I connected to the person. I won't mention the person's name, but I had a particular situation with somebody. It wasn't really that big of a deal, but it was big enough you didn't want to talk to that person for like 3 years. But it was your situation, and that we were both on the same side. And I went and had to talk to the brother, like, you know what, man? You know, brother, I would like to talk to you about certain things. Or sister, I'm not gonna say what gender the person was, but it made me think of, you know, how we're so disjointed. And it made me feel like, you know, living in Africa is one thing where if you're dealing with people, you're in the black utopia. You have to work it out. Like, if I'm in London and if I'm in America, if I don't really like you and we're doing a bit, I can probably get a replacement for you, or I can go somewhere else. I can give up quickly, right?
Right.
I don't have to come to the table, but like, you know what, Sarah, what you did, I didn't like. I could just, you know what, in America, I probably can curse you out, or you curse me out, or we can and never be friends anymore, and that'd be it, right? But now living in Africa in a black utopia, something happens, you have to come to the table and try to reason, because you might not be able to get that person anywhere else in the country. So you have to come out and work it out and get over the hump and clean yourself up as a group to continue going forward. And I've noticed that because we have so many options in the black world now, especially in the West, we don't really owe each other anything as black people.
Right.
So we don't have. Go ahead.
Because has Western civilization in general helped to destroy that for black people, like with feminism, with all the isms, whether it be Marxism, whether it be all the isms, has Western civilization in general helped to destroy that? You said that you spoke to a guy after what happened with myself and Pearl, but you have to ask yourself, is it really that deep? And what was it that got in between? I'm actually quite thankful that whoever that person was, right, that my situation could help you bridge a gap, right? I'm actually quite, I like that. But it's a shame that it had to be a woman like a culture vulture to get it done, you know?
Right.
And I think that when it comes to situations and people like this, we have to be able to not hate, but at least know when to just like say, you know what? No, that's not okay. And the problem is that we have become so accustomed to saying yes. Because I could have said yes, right? To everything, O'Shea. I could have said yes to everything. But we've become so accustomed to saying yes, is that when we say no, we feel guilty about saying no. I do not feel guilty about releasing that video. People are trying to make me feel guilty. As a matter of fact, people are trying to twist the narrative of that video as if to say it's because of a contract. This is not because of a contract. This is because of things I saw, because of integrity, because of how this made me feel uncomfortable, because of a colonial mindset. This is why the video actually exists. It's not because of a contract. It's not because of money. Everyone gets money, you know, but does everyone get integrity? Does everyone have humanity? Does everyone care? And I think in this personal situation, from what I've seen, a lot of us don't care. A lot of us are done. And to be a little bit controversial, somebody said to me a few days ago, I can see how slavery happened, right? That's what they said to me, bro. They were like, I can see how slavery happened. I can see how a lot of people didn't care enough, right? And allowed certain things to happen to get what? Some of this. And this is what I've noticed. This is what I've noticed, right? Within this space now, with a lot of these quote unquote my Africans, right? Because they want to get some of this, right? It will be very easy for them to say certain things and do certain things because the one that's in charge, the colonial master, is giving them some of this.
Right. But what I want to add to that is partly, like you alluded to, it's partly our fault, right? And what we need to do is living in Africa has taught me, even when I was living in Poland, right? You try to make your world as black as you can when you live in like your extreme minority, Poland, which is a very homogeneous population. So when I was in medical school there, and then coming here where everybody is black for them, you know, for the most part, it makes you have to work with people. Even like say in America, where I would leave the organization, or I would quit, or I would not deal with it. I wouldn't put up with it. But here it's taught me that to develop in the black world, and I'm being developed too,
Right.
There's a lot of patience and dedication you need to have for you to get somewhere, because these other groups have. So as Blacks, partly, and like Brother George Macon says, we create our own sellouts, and we do that by not intentionally trying to work, because the biggest opportunity is in the Black world. You have the Africa Free Trade Agreement. You have, almost any city in America, Black St. Louis, Black Philadelphia, Black Oakland. There's enough money in there, and we to do anything, and we don't create the people that we need to solve our issues in anywhere in the Black world. So other people do it for us. So I think that what this has taught me more or less is the things that we would maybe, not would be so forgiving towards each other. We tend to be very forgiving towards other people. Yeah, and we don't get. And then the thing about it is the question I would want to ask or pose: what is the incentive for your forgiveness for others, such that you can't forgive your brothers and sisters, where you would get a bigger reward? And we don't have that investment in our people at all, which is why we continually in a constitutive manner don't have anything. So it's changed my mindset, and I've seen this going down. I've seen the people defending her, and to a point, I understand the psychology.
Yeah, it's psychological.
That brother Omawale says these people lack they have racial amnesia. They've lost their racial identity, and that's why I'm not going at her fans necessarily, or even a lot of people like in a harsh way I would 2 or 3 years ago. But what I will say is, as Blacks, we have to give a better effort in trying to work with each other. We have 100%. To at least start speaking to each other, because if you don't, you can't even do business with each other or do anything, right? And that's until the day I die. Now, that is my goal. Like, I really want to try to do the best I can, and everybody's not the best person, and everybody's not the worst person. But if we don't make the intentional effort to deal with the people in our community, we will never have anything. And other people who treat their people better are always going to rule over us. And so we need to catch up with our mentality first, so the efforts can come out. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. Why do you think I'm speaking to you right now? Right? Because of that same sentiment. Like, you look like me. We have to start working together. We have to start doing things. I'm about self-determination. I'm about being able to, feed yourself and feed your family. One of the things is that within our people, right? Like you said, because of the psychology, there's distrust, there's disharmony, there's discontentment. So we would prefer to work with somebody other than ourselves. I've worked with all types of people, right? And like I said, I do not work with people that look like me. I work with people that look like me all the time, but there are some of us that would prefer not to work with people like themselves to get some of that. And so, a lot of the stuff that's been on the video, they've been saying, we commend you, Sarah, for, keeping your integrity and being honest and stuff like that. And to me, those are the things that have kind of been forgotten in this society, like integrity and, honor and loyalty have kind of been forgotten within the society over money, and everyone likes to make money. I like to make money. Everyone likes to make money. It's the way the world goes around. It's the way the world goes. But there does come a point, there should come a point where you think, you know what, I'd prefer to keep myself, calm, cool, collected at nighttime, other than, taking this money and feeling to yourself, because that's all we've got at the end of the day, isn't it? O'Shea? We got, like, when you go to bed at night, you lay down by yourself, you got your own thoughts in your head. I've always said, are you happy with yourself? Are you happy with the decisions that you made? A lot of people are laying down at nighttime and they're not happy with the decisions that they made. Though on the outside, though on YouTube world, they were going, yo, da, da, da. It's like, okay, are you happy? Okay, you got some money. Are you happy? Well, then maybe you don't have any integrity. And I think I'm about integrity. I'm about working with people that have the same integrity. And so, I think it's a shame and it's saddening that this situation has, caused such a split within Black YouTube. But I also think it's actually a blessing as well.
Yeah. It definitely is. And you get to see people laugh. But brother, I'm not gonna hold you too much longer. I definitely thank you. I wanted to do this pre-recorded, not live, so that we can get this out to the people. But brother, congratulations on 100,000 subscribers. Give him another round of applause for that achievement. And for the people, you know, obviously, and shout out to, I know you these people, In My Opinion podcast. You know those people, right?
In my opinion, yeah.
Brother Sukali, he was here in Uganda, so
Oh yeah,
that was my return to podcasting. So we came, he came, and DJ Maintain. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's
I don't know DJ Maintain, but shout out to him anyway.
British brother, he's on my podcast and Oma Kingana channel. So we're having a really good time over there. So Brother Sukali was amazing. He came here. He's in Uganda. I think it's 2 Nigerians and 1 Ugandan brother there.
Okay.
So so just tell the people, man, you know, why should they subscribe to the Brother Sarah Garvey's YouTube channel?
The reason why you should subscribe to Sarah Garvey is essentially you're going to get integrity, and essentially you're going to get honesty. And essentially what's going to happen is you're probably not going to like it, and then sometimes you will like it, and most of the times you'll like it. But regardless of whether you like it or not, it's going to be the truth, and it's going to be integral. So a lot of the time it's about changing the way in which, you know, you come across due to coming up on new information. I'm all about new information. I'm all about self-determination. You know, I'm all about understanding exactly who you are as well as who I am, and, you know, building a new foundation. And I think what you've done here, O'Shea, which is something that I've wanted for a long time, is to bridge the gap between quote unquote black peoples all over the diaspora, right? You have to bridge the gap, whether you be in Africa, UK, America, all of that stuff. You have to bridge the gap. And I would say people to go into my channel and go back past when I was posting content from, you know, JustPearlyThings, okay? Because I've been doing it for a while, and you will see, you know, I do like racism debates, you know, when we bring people together, we bring audiences together, and we start talking about that kind of stuff. I talk to politicians, you know, I talk to controversial characters, I do all of that kind of stuff. I talk about race, I talk about religion, I talk about politics, I talk about, one of the things we didn't touch on before we go is that I want to touch on is that I believe that the Western world is actually falling. Right. And when I say that is I believe that when it comes to family, when it comes to society, when it comes to politics, it's falling. And that's one of the reasons why I actually totally believe that people within the West need to start looking. You've already looked, O'Shea, you're in Uganda right now. You need to start looking outside of the West for places to live, because the society in which we are living in is actually falling when it comes to all of these things. And so, yeah, that's the reason why you should subscribe. So when I come back and, you know, we get over this copyright strike situation, we're going in hard.
Going in hard. Okay, well, hopefully we're going to go ahead on and beat that. Thank you so much, brother, for giving me the opportunity to interview here. I've seen you on some other live streams as of late, but I thank you so much for your time. And guys, make sure you check out the first comment pinned to the top, guys. Thank you so much. And as you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. We are out.